This afternoon, we will have still two countries to look at, the Czech Republic and Sweden, both countries in which a lot is happening. The first country we're going to look at, the Czech Republic, we first will get the point of view of somebody who has been active for years already on the local level and on the political level, and who has been also voicing her activity on a national level during several occasions in the Czech Republic. Hana Konvalinkova is, I got to know her when she was also active in the Czech Green Party, which is only a very small party, but her main activity is as a member of the platform against deep underground repositories, an association of local groups in all the different locations that a few years ago were indicated as potential sites for deep geological disposals in the Czech Republic. After her, we will hear the viewpoint from Lukas Vondrovic, who is working for the implementation, the nuclear waste implementation organization SURAO in the Czech Republic, and who also has already been involved in these issues for quite some time, starting as a geologist and now responsible for a lot of the work of SURAO on the ground.
My name is Hana Konvalinkova, and I represent the Platform Against Repository here today. The platform associates 51 municipalities and NGO, and I'm a member of the platform. So most of the ideas that I will be presenting to you here today are shared views of the people from municipalities concerned with the DGR plan. I'll go a little bit in the history of the site selection process, which has been ongoing for more than 20 years. And as there were some discrepancies between the situation in reality and the picture SURAO presented, I will try to put these in contrast so that you can see where the public participation and transparency went astray. We could call it a Czech case study on how to lose trust. I chose this format because I believe that by highlighting some of the details, one can understand better where the problems are and what is necessary to improve from the public participation perspective. Although I'll be quite critical, I think that with the new management of SURAO, we can hope for a new start. So the talks about DGR started in the Czech Republic in the 1990s, and as of then, localities were added. In 2012, we already had 6 of them, and in parallel, the first referendums in municipalities were conducted with a clear no to the DGR plan. More localities were added as the time went by. Usually in sites where public acceptance was expected. This happened last in June 2016, when 2 localities near the existing MPPs were added. So public acceptance was really expected, but the plan wasn't really discussed in advance, and the municipalities were not contacted and informed, so it provoked a big public disagreement and opposition. The picture on the left is one of the public hearings with SURAO in one of those newly added localities. With the first public hearings, the first public criticism arose. What the people criticized basically was that they were not informed, that they were not being informed completely and truthfully, and they felt, I'd say, that it was some kind of a monkey business in which they were not allowed to participate. It really created bad feelings at the time. The picture at the background is another public hearing in one of the localities. a little bit of a history from the public participation point of view. There are the two contrasts. There's the reality, and on the other side, there's some quotes from what SURAO presented at the time. So in 2012, the municipalities were assured that geological surveys will only proceed with the consent of the municipalities. 1 year later, the Ministry of Industry said, no, we will go on with the surveys in all sites without the consent, even against the will of the people. With another Minister of the Industry in 2016, the localities learned that the surveys will be conducted only in sites where the consent is guaranteed, regardless of geology. It was quite surprising for everyone. So a few months later, it was withdrawn. This idea was withdrawn, and it was again repeated that surveys will be done everywhere. What SURAO presented was the intent to conduct public participation. I like the word intent in the processes of choosing a site by setting a partnership agreement with the affected communities. And they said it would be up to the communities to decide upon the form of their involvement. It'd be nice if they could. They also set up a working group for so-called working group for dialogue. And again, the group intended to strengthen a transparent process for the site search and take into account the interest of public. I will come back to the working group. It fell apart later, and it didn't really fulfill its purpose. But SURAO evaluated the working group as really working well. More on the act of the involvement of municipalities. This is a term that SURAO uses in their materials. I like to call it Participation Act. So with reference to Euratom transparency provision, the Czech Atom Act anticipates a special law on public participation throughout the siting process. I have to say here that the act hasn't been passed here until today. But in 2011, when the working group for dialogue was established, they produced, I have to stress that there were also representatives of the municipalities and NGOs at the time included in the working group. So they produced a draft or prepared draft version of the Participation Act, then another draft in 2015. While in 2016, the working group fell apart, or the NGO representatives and municipal representatives left it because they felt it was more of a mock-up participation group. They were present, they could say something, but their remarks were never taken into account and discussed. So they felt that they didn't want to take part in something that SURAO presented as a participation tool and platform. So that's why they left, and then the group stopped working. There were continuously promises about processing the act. Another draft was submitted in 2017, and then another one in 2018. Finally, we got to the point when in December 2020, the intention of the act, not the act itself, the intention of the act was accepted by the government and moved further to the legislation process. We could say hooray, but we can't, because we are 9 months away from the parliamentary elections, and it's very unlikely that the act will be proceeded and it will be passed. So we'll start all over again. What was wrong with the last draft of the Act on the Involvement, or so-called Participation Act? The municipalities hired their legal representative and commented on the substantive draft of the Act. But all comments were rejected. Personal settlement of the comments was rejected, and the answer that the municipalities received from the Ministry of Industry was factually incompatible with the essence of the comments. It created very bad feelings. So what the municipalities criticized, they said if the participation should be effective and sufficient, they have to be able to influence whether the process will continue in the given locality or not. Another thing was that the submitted draft proposal almost completely neglected the involvement of the public and made citizens of municipalities mere onlookers in the permitting procedures. The draft also didn't prevent the possibility of purposeful confusion that have been used in the past. I mean, for example, confusion of surveys and research. I will come back to this and explain it a little more. And the critiques went also in the line of compensation provisions. Now, I have all these quotes are from SURAO. Forgive me if I forgot to say that SURAO is our waste management organization, but you already know. So on their webpage, you can find some really interesting and attractive info. I call it DGR advertising because it promises prosperity, employment, better infrastructure and services, safety, and the money. After reading this, one would really wish to have the DGR next to their home, I think. But if you read the technical reports for the shortlisted sites, you can find out a bit more about some negative effects. One of those is, for instance, housing and negative effects on housing and housing construction and recreation. I have to say that all the sites, shortlisted sites, now 4 shortlisted sites in the Czech Republic, are in rural area with a very nice nature. The photo at the background is from the locality Hradec, near where I live. So half of the population lives here, and the other half owns their weekend houses, and they come down for the weekends, which is a Czech hobby. And when they retire, they usually settle down. Another negative effect is reduce of the attractiveness of the area. Again, holidaymakers are mentioned, but it will affect everyone. And one of the very interesting negative thing is the effect of the groundwater regime in the surface part of the rock massif. After the depth of approximately 50 meters, we can find out that a decrease in the groundwater level and extinction of local groundwater sources and possibility of decrease in flow rates in surface flows may occur. This is something that the municipalities and public have been questioning ever since, but SURAO really downplayed this fact and never explained it. More failures when communicate to municipalities and the public. It was when SURAO wanted to set the exploration areas. It's something they needed to do to be able to continue with the research. The former director said they will set the exploration areas in all sites in December 2016. Later on, when litigations from municipalities started and the exploration areas were cancelled, he said they didn't need them and they will go on without them. But to be able to do it legally, they had to rename the geological research to geological survey, because the survey doesn't really need an exploration area to be set. SURAO really thinks differently along different lines. Yeah, because again, quotations from their brochure, they talk about successful conclusion of the project, fully respecting principles of safety, health and environment, developing partnership. They talk about guarantees of full participation in the decision-making process of the municipalities. This is something they would like to hear. Another tricky promise here is the largest scale geological research will only commence following to the introduction of the Act on the Involvement. Sounds very promising, but it'll happen or after 23, whichever comes the first. So it's a clearly paved way of doing the geological research without public consent and the Participation Act. It's very it's recently published, and it's very very negative thing. I called it less PR, more work on the Participation Act. I think what SURAO does and spends money on is a magazine and an expensive PR, but this is a promotion of the concept of the DGR. This is at least how I perceive it. This is not a participation tool. So I'd like to stress that what we want, what the municipalities and the people involved, what they strive for, is the Participation Act that needs to be revoked, taking into account the comments of municipalities, associations, and NGOs, and creating truly effective tool that will not only be a fake and imperfect implementation of the law, but an effective tool of defining the process and conditions under which municipalities and citizens can participate. And when we adopt this law, the Czech Republic finally will meet the requirements of the Radioactive Directive as well as its own Atomic Act. I sometimes think of what's the real mission of SURAO. You probably know that there are 2 MPPs, 2 nuclear power plants in the Czech Republic, and the government hopes to build a new reactor. So we often hear this tale of the cheap, reliable, low-emission energy source, but the tale doesn't have a good end. At least, in fact, it doesn't have any end at the moment. Radioactive waste and spent fuel has been piling up in the interim storages with no solution in sight. And here comes SURAO that says, we'll do it, we know how, and we know where. So I'd like to stress that the mission of SURAO is not to defend the future use of nuclear energy, but to find the best solution for the storage of our existing high-level waste, spent fuel, and also for the components from the units of the NPEPs when they're shut down. I've mentioned the platforms against DGR, of which I'm a member. And to conclude, I'd like to say that without the work of an interest of municipalities, NGOs, and citizens, the implementation of Aarhus Convention in the field of information and effective participation would have been even worse. This is something what we fought for and what's improving. So not to be only critical, I have to say that SURAO improved communication recently, is more open. They provided some technical studies. They set up an expert panel on geological assessment when they were assessing the geological criteria for the shortlisting of the sites. They allowed 1 representative of the municipalities with a voting right. So what we would like to see is more information and more participation. I'd like to stress that the importance of geological criteria must go hand in hand with the consent of the municipalities concerned. It shouldn't be exchanged one for the other. We'd like to see the Participation Act passed before any geological research is done. And this is all from me now. Thank you.
Lukas Vondrovic, working for SURAO, already set the implementation organization in the Czech Republic, where he's responsible for the construction of an underground, where he was responsible for the construction of an underground research facility in Bukov, and now is the head of the repository development department at SURAO. Lukas, tell us the story from the side of SURAO.
It's my pleasure to introduce SURAO and what we are doing. I would like to thank also Hana Konvalinkova for her point of view. Of course, with some statements I agree, and with some statements I don't agree. But in my presentation, I would like to focus more on what the state technical organization can do in concerning the public engagement. And I have to stress in the beginning that SURAO is not only one responsible institution of the process or system of radioactive waste management in the Czech Republic. So to set up the scene, SURAO is a government based organization, and our mission is to ensure the safe disposal of all kinds of radioactive waste produced in Czech Republic, and we guarantee the sufficient capacity for disposal for low and intermediate level waste, and also we are also responsible for construction of future deep geological repository. Our principles are very simple. The state is responsible for the safe disposal of radioactive waste, whereas the producers are responsible for safe management, as well as for decommissioning and making the financial reserves for their activities. Situation in Czech Republic, despite we are quite a small country, we have a very advanced nuclear sector. We are operating two nuclear sources, two power plants, and we, as a SURAO, operating 3 repositories. We are acting on 4 potential deep geological repository sites, and we are operating also 1 underground research laboratory for development of deep geological repository. It must be stressed that the Czech Republic has a long tradition of safe disposal of radioactive waste. We are currently operating 3 repositories, Richard and Bratrství, operating from 1960s, so we have a quite good experience in disposal of radioactive waste, and these 2 repositories are from institutional waste, and the last repository, Dukovany, is intended from radioactive waste from nuclear power plant operation. Our biggest R&D project is the development of deep geological repository. This project is very similar to others in Europe. The main point is that this deep geological repository will come into operation from 2065 and will serve for the waste from the Czech Republic. In the development of the geological repository, last year we made, after 17 years of the process, very important step when SURAO recommended to government 4 relatively more suitable sites from 4, and our government accept our recommendation and confirm that we will further evaluate these 4 sites. It meant that after 17 years of work, we see clearly differences between sites in terms of safety, environmental issues, and technical feasibility, and thus we see no sense to continue our research on remaining 5 sites. In the rest of my presentation, I would like to introduce some of our tools that we are communicating and engage the local communities. Concerning the operating repositories, we established in the time span 2015 to 2017 a local control committee. Their members are the members of localities and members of region, and we are presenting them the everyday operation of each repository, results of radiation and safety monitoring, and asking for their reflection. Hana already presented the results of working group for dialogue. It was the large body in a communication of deep geological repository project. It started its work from 2010 and in 2017. The main outputs were the establishing the financial compensation for exploration activities that are being performed during the site selection process as a site characterization activities. They also made comments to site selection criteria, and also the proposal of a new law for public engagement that is now being used after some comments from the governmental organization. Our voluntary initiative during the site evaluation from 2019 to 2020 was the establishing of so-called expert advisory board, and via this board we wanted to ensure and show the process of site evaluation and comparison, and we wanted to show to municipalities that the whole process is clear, transparent, and objective, and we don't prefer any sites from technical point of view. I think that this board was quite successful. The composition either reflected the technical point of view concerning the site selection criteria, and also the one representative of the whole municipalities was nominated as a member of a panel and of this board, and he has the voting right. As the observers, the representatives of municipalities concerned were nominated, two representatives per each locality, and also as an independent organization, the State Office for Nuclear Safety. And we just put all the outputs that were evaluated during the site selection, and all materials were reviewed by this expert advisory board, as well as the observers also could have some comments. We got several hundreds of comments to all material, and we answered to every comment, and we clearly marked which comment has a direct input to updating the particular material. And also this expert advisory group made the final report when they just put some recommendation for the further process and further step, and we are now trying to follow them. So it was that this we done during the site selection process, and now 2 slides what we are planning in futures. So concerning the stakeholder involvement in the next 10 years, because the next milestone is 2030 to select the final and backup site, we want to clearly distinguish the 2 levels. Local level and governmental level. Concerning the local level, we will invite in the first half of this year the municipalities in so-called local working group, when we will communicate with the communities, and also we will ask them for their opinion to the things that are really connected with the project. For example, their comments for the future surface part of the repository, also for the comments of for everyday operation of the repository, and so on and so on. Also, it will be information platform concerning our site characterization process, and we will be presenting there our results. The second board will be on a level of the whole Republic, and it will be the continuation of expert advisory board, and we are quite ambitious with other stakeholders. It will be the committee that will take place for the next 10 years, which is quite challenging, and ensure that all the decisions in process, like setting criteria, setting the words, are clear and heading to some state, and guarantee high level of objectivity of site selection and evaluation, and also the high level of professionalism. And this we will establish during this year. Okay, what to say for the last? We are a technical organization. We can only fulfill what we can promise, and we can promise only the technical issue. We are not the process holder. but we are promising what we can fulfill. What we can fulfill is we will be hearing from communities what they like and dislike on the project itself, and also we will be communicating every activities that we were doing in the process and actually on sites. So that's it. Thank you for your attention, and I will be happy to discuss later. Thank you.
There is one shorter clarifying question from David Lowry. He says, well, in 2018, during the European Nuclear Energy Forum in Bratislava, the Slovak and Czech ministers jointly announced a repository development to be shared between the two states. Could you update this meeting on the developments in this joint repository since that time?
It is, let me clarify this, it is not about the one repository for two countries. It is about the cooperation, because Czech Republic and Slovak Republic are in very similar stage. So we can share the technologies like Swedish or Finnish program. And it meant joint research, not one repository, not the joint repository. That was never been discussed.